Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Now yesterday, as you're fully aware, Frontier announced the release date for patch 2.4 The Return, and also come along with it a rather fantastic looking cinematic that showed off some early stages of some Farragut combat. Now we know patch 2.4 isn't very far away now, but I do want to talk about a few other points coming in patch 2.4. Firstly, a few other things that people have noticed in the trailer, and secondly, some other aspects. There's been some new developments mentioned on Galnet. And on top of that, with the arrival of patch 2.4, there's going to be a few things going away that we're not going to be seeing again. First though, let's very briefly head back to the cinematic though, and highlight a few points that a few very observant people have noticed. Perhaps more observant than me, because after all, yesterday I did say there's no top tier ship here. But there's certainly a number of things far more interesting than that to check out. Now, the Thargoids we've seen so far have been classed as interceptor ships, but beyond that we knew nothing more about them. The trailer, however, reveals a little bit more information. It seems that this particular Thargoid is classed as the Cyclops variant. So that would certainly seem to imply that there's going to be other Thargoid variants out there, whether or not they look the same as this one, or just different spec, or whether or not they arrive at the start or later on down the line, of course, are all questions that are very much open at the moment. Another thing that has been noticed, in fact there's been many things noticed, I'm not going to go through all of them, but yeah, one other thing I did want to mention is that there's a logo right here on the front of the ship. Now this logo isn't too dissimilar to the logo that we saw on the barnacles, although it is somewhat different. But it seems quite clear that there's some sort of relationship between the two symbols here. But this is all somewhat incidental really, and by the by, of far more interest are the flighter clusters that are launched from the Farragut ship. Now what's particularly interesting about these is firstly they look like a pack of missiles being launched, but if you look closely you can see them both manoeuvring as well as shooting, so it's quite clear they're fighters, and many of people are actually calling them Thargons or Tharglets. But that's not the most interesting thing about this. The most interesting thing is that their weapons fire seems to be bypassing the human shields. And we'll play that a third time here just so we can get a quick look at that. And there you can see there's no shield reaction whatsoever. Now that may be simply a stylistic choice from Frontier. It may just be a part of the cinematic. And when we come into the game, we may find that's not the case at all. But it's also quite possible, and quite probable according to some spectators on the internet, that this may be quite accurate and that the weapons fire from these small fighters is indeed bypassing the human shields. Now there's another thing I want to talk about very briefly today, and this is a new Galnet article published on the Galactic News Network. And well, I don't normally read these out, but this one is of particular interest. It says here, over the past few months, several reports have surfaced of federal convoys coming under fire in the Maya system. Whilst circumstantial evidence strongly suggested Thargoid involvement, the Federation declined to comment, saying only that the matter was under investigation. But fresh reports indicate that another attack, resulting in the loss of a Farragut-class battlecruiser and a number of other vessels, has recently taken place. In a galaxy-wide announcement, the Federation confirmed that the attack was perpetuated by the Thargoid interceptor-class vessels, as corroborated by those who survived the assault. Now, whether or not this is actually another attack in addition to the one we saw a while ago, you may remember that back during E3, Frontier did a live stream which culminated in coming across a destroyed battlecruiser. In fact, in that instance there was actually 2 destroyed battlecruisers, and this article only mentions one. So whether or not this is in addition to that, I guess we don't really know, but let's assume for the moment that it is. Now the Galnet article continues. Chief of Federal Security Admiral Aidan Tanner issued the following statement. Since we cannot communicate with the Thargoids and cannot therefore determine the motive for this attack, it cannot be considered an act of war in the conventional sense. Nevertheless, I can confirm that the Thargoids are now considered an enemy of the Federation. But then again, who knows, that could simply be because the Federation keep tramping over these Thargoids, shooting them in the back and doing who knows what. Admiral Tanner's statements was swiftly followed by a public address from Federal President Zachary Hudson, speaking from the White House on Mars. Like many others, I hoped that the Thargoids would prove to be peaceful. Today, I am forced to concede that my optimism was misplaced. What I say now, I say to every citizen of the Federation, action will be taken. I have given Admiral Tanner total authority over this matter and extended to him the full resources of the Federal Navy. I have every confidence that he will address this threat to the Federation." So a nice little out-of-game story piece there that goes on to really iterate what the Federation feel about the situation, and that they very much feel that the Thargoids are certainly a threat. And I guess we're going to find just how much of a significant threat they actually are over the coming months. And I do say coming months because up till this point it's been a little unclear just how long of a period patch 2.4 is going to roll out across. Now Frontier have made it clear over the previous months that patch 2.4 is going to be released in segments. And last night when they announced the release date for patch 2.4, they made it very clear that these segments are going to roll out over the period of a number of months. So let's hope then that the content released over this time is going to be fairly significant on each release. The good thing here though is that it means we don't have a huge long wait where there's no new releases. Now personally I think this could be very much a good thing. After all, the release period between patch 2.2 and 2.3 was very long. In fact, the whole release period of Horizons has been a little too long. Many people suspected it was going to last for about a year, which when you consider it's classed a season would actually make sense. But here we are, coming on for 2 years later, and it's only just about to come to a conclusion. So releasing updates on a more regular interval, even if that content is slightly smaller each time, would perhaps remove all these dry spells that we've having for prolonged periods. Now, sticking with the subject of patch 2.4, there's two other things I do want to mention, and this is to do with things that are actually going to be disappearing with the update, things that we probably will no longer experience and no longer see. Now, for some people, they would be fairly significant, other people would probably be quite happy to see the back of them. The first and foremost among these are areas like Quince, where you can stack missions and make a significant amount of money in a relatively short amount of time. And of course, the way this works is that when you stack 20 missions into your mission panel, you can complete them all just by completing a single mission, and so you can get the reward for all 20 missions. Now, Quince isn't the only area that this works in. There are plenty of other areas out there, and if you do a search of the internet, you'll be able to find pretty much many of these places, and I'm sure many other people are keeping their area completely secret. But with around about 66,000 inhabited star systems with stations in, it makes sense that there are going to be quite a few of these that we probably still haven't even found. At any rate, these are all going to go away because with patch 2.4, mission stacking in the current way it's been abused is going to go away. Of course, you will still be able to stack missions, but you're no longer about to complete all the missions just by completing a singular one. Instead, what will happen is when you complete one mission, it will tick off the mission at the topmost of the list. When you complete the next mission, it will tick off the mission next on the list, and so on until you completed all 20 missions. So this type of mission stacking has been around for a very long time now, and I'm sure many people have made hundreds of millions, if not billions of credits from it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's going to be disappearing with patch 2.4. Now that's not the only thing that's going. One other thing that's going is a risk to explorers. And again, some people are happy about this and other people are not so happy about it. Now this seems to be a bit of an undocumented feature. I haven't noticed it in the patch notes at least, but I did test this out a number of times during beta. And basically what happens is when you drop out of the system and you find yourself near a binary star or a place with more stars, it used to be quite possible that you'd find yourself trapped between the two of them. That no longer happens. Instead, the FSD will drop you out a good few dozen light seconds away from the stars themselves, meaning that they will pose no risk to you whatsoever. Now again, I do want to clarify that this does seem to be an undocumented feature and it may not make it to the live servers, but I did test it out in both the closed beta as well as the open beta, and in both cases it worked exactly the same. You get dropped out a significant distance away from the stars. This of course doesn't apply to regular stars whereby you drop out at the normal distance. But there we are, there's just two things I wanted to mention that many people probably either dislike about the game or very much do enjoy about the game that are going to be disappearing in the next update. Now here we are then in September 15th today, coming up for the release of patch 2.4, and at this point in the release schedule, it's very unusual for us to hear anything about the next patch, but it's going to be very different this time. The Frontier Expo is coming up on the 7th of October, and Frontier have already suggested some of the things they're going to be talking about One is a change for exploration, a rumoured change but somewhat confirmed by Frontier. Another is that Frontier are going to be relooking at the RNG elements of the engineers, and perhaps even the engineers altogether. Now these are all things that are going to form a part of the next update, which is a reworking of the core elements of the game, something I'm personally very much looking forward to, because after all, Elite does need a lot of depth added to it, and Frontier are willing to admit that they did miss out a lot of the things they did want to put in the game initially. Another thing worth mentioning is that during yesterday's live stream, the lead designer for the game, Sandro Sammarco, did mention that after the Frontier Expo, the developers will be spending much more time on the Elite Dangerous forums, or at least that's the intent. They're hoping that's something they can do. The reasons for this are completely unclear at the moment, but if I was to have my suspicions, it would be because they want to openly discuss how they want to rework the game with the player base. Pure speculation on my part, of course, but if that does turn out to be the case, it can hopefully only lead to good things. That then brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.